I remember back in the spring, Wilson Alexander of The Advocate, who covers the team, sat down with Brian Kelly and wrote a series of stories. And in one of them, Brian Kelly said that the backup quarterbacks at that point, which was Michael Van Buren, who had just transferred in from Mississippi State, Colin Hurley, who was in his second year, and Juwan Johnson, who was playing quarterback at this time. Those three guys, he said to Wilson Alexander, would redshirt. Unfortunately, I dug on the internet, and could not find the exact quote, but I have a short that is on YouTube of me talking about it, and I found multiple aggregators that had found it, but I couldn't find the exact quote, but I remember it, and it happened. The thought was, you have three backup quarterbacks, there are 12 games. They can all play four. They can all play four. And, of course, you realize that it's unlikely that a backup quarterback has to play in every game of a 12-game season, especially when you've got a fifth-year senior quarterback on your roster that you're assuming is going to be your starter and play the majority of the season. So that was the plan on March 3rd. Now we sit here on November 12th, and it's still very possible for Hurley and certainly for Michael Van Buren as well. Juwan Johnson moved to running back, and he's played, so that ship sailed for him. But his circumstances changed. But Michael Van Buren could preserve his eligibility. Michael Van Buren's played 3 games. He could play in one more and play in the bowl game, and he could still preserve a redshirt. But if he plays against Arkansas and or Western Kentucky / Oklahoma, so 2 of the 3, he burns his redshirt. So Matt Moscona jumped on the SEC teleconference today and asked Frank Wilson, like, so have you talked about that? Now, clearly, Brian Kelly's not in charge anymore, so things can change. And Frank said this. If he, meaning Michael Van Buren, can come in and contribute and help us to win, it's something he wants to do. It's something we want him to do because we think he has tremendous value to us. And then he continued, those are things you have to take into consideration of student, athlete, and family of what may have been told to them prior and where we're currently at as a program. We're taking those appropriate measures. So what Frank is essentially saying there, and I'm reading a little bit into it, I'm inferring a little bit, but it's like that may have been the plan. That may have been communicated to Michael and his family. Right now, we're in a spot where we may need him to win games. We're not going to force him out on the field, but we think he can help. We think he can produce. We think he can play, and we'd like him to do that. And it sounds like Van Buren has been agreeable to that. Now, you look at Michael Van Buren's situation. He played last year at Mississippi State in a spot he didn't think he was going to have to because Blake Shapen got hurt in September, and Van Buren came on and started 8 games. Then he hit the transfer portal, and he commanded an NIL figure with what he had put on the field, and he took one to come be a backup at LSU. Now, quarterbacks hit the portal very, very frequently, and it stands to reason whether Michael Van Buren is playing at LSU next year, which is certainly possible, he's here right now, or decides that he might want to look elsewhere, which many quarterbacks do every year. Playing very well drives up your NIL and right now revenue sharing number. It just does. This is no different than an NFL player or a Major League Baseball player or an NBA player on a 1-year deal, about to hit free agency. Now, Michael Van Buren can allow himself another year on the back end of this if he wants to sit. He can do that. But he can also, if he comes in and the idea is, hey, you're going to play 20 snaps in this game. And if you play well, you might play 40 snaps against Western Kentucky. And if you play well, like, it's not out of the question you could start against Oklahoma. There's real opportunity there for Michael Van Buren if he can put on some good tape. Keep in mind, SEC teams, LSU included, so I'm not suggesting Michael Van Buren is trying to leave. That's not what I'm saying. But we all understand that's a possibility, right? Like, you can do that. But LSU is going to have at its disposal north of $18 million to spend on its roster with revenue sharing and then, of course, the NIL stuff that comes in on the back end of it. But revenue sharing is guaranteed. NIL is kind of opportunity-based. Revenue sharing is the money's there. Now they're going to distribute it to student athletes. Austin Thomas is going to be in charge of that with the next head coach. if you, Michael Van Buren, go out there and play really well in its abbreviated starts, or maybe it's in a significant amount of snaps moving forward, your ability to go ask for more of that rev share to be the starting quarterback on next year's team, it goes up. Now, certainly you could go out there, throw 3 interceptions, fumble twice, complete 28% of your passes, and LSU will be really in the market for a transfer quarterback. So it's just like it's called a prove it deal. Major League Baseball, I hear that all the time. Guys sign a 1-year prove it deal. If you go out there and hit 41 homers, hit 276, drive in 105, and have an OPS of 950, you're going to get paid. You go out there and fall flat, you won't. But that's a new wrinkle in collegiate athletics literally this year with revenue sharing. So while it would behoove folks in the past, hey, we're not playing for anything. Like, who cares if we're in the Duke's Mayo Bowl or the ReliaQuest Bowl or the Liberty Bowl? Like, I don't really care about that. I'm trying to preserve that year of eligibility. I'm not going to play more than 4 games. That happens. Get opt-outs all the time. But there's never been an opportunity, well, not until very, very recently, to go to the negotiating table with some of that. And the financial benefit may be more than the additional year down the road in year 5. So I'm not surprised Michael Van Buren wants to play. And I want to be very clear to wrap this. Like, I'm not saying this is what I'm hearing Michael Van Buren's doing. I'm just laying out the reality of collegiate athletics. It has nothing to do independently with Michael Van Buren. It's just the situation we're in. Everyone is playing for their next contract. It can change year to year. And while in March, the plan was maybe for Michael Van Buren, I like this NIL check I'm getting from LSU. I'll learn here, develop here behind Nussmeier, and then we'll go play next. He's got an opportunity now, potentially to go out there, make some plays, show yourself as a capable SEC quarterback once again, and whether it's LSU you're going to the negotiating table or the open market, you can drive that value up. And there are probably, I'm just going to guess a number, 70% of you listening to this that are going, this is disgusting. But it doesn't make it any less true. That's where we are. So I expect to see Michael Van Buren in the game on Saturday. I expect to see him in the game next Saturday. I expect to see him on the field in Norman, Oklahoma. We'll see how much. I think it very likely has to do with how the offense functions with Garrett Nussmeier when he's out there and how it functions with Michael Van Buren when he's out there. And I think the decision then falls to Alex Atkins, Frank Wilson, and Tim Rattay as to what we want to do with these guys moving forward. Drive the drive. And then you see where you end up at the end of the year. Garrett Nussmeier heads off to the NFL. Michael Van Buren gets to decide what he wants to do with the circumstances he's helped create for himself over the last 4 weeks of the season. So, not surprised. Plans change. And this one clearly has changed, according to Frank Wilson, as he spoke with the media on the SEC teleconference earlier today. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.